The rain pattered against the windows of the McDonald's as Sundar Pichai stepped inside, shaking water from his umbrella. He hadn't planned on stopping here, but the sudden downpour had forced him to seek shelter on his way to the tech conference, downtown. The familiar smell of fries and coffee filled the air as he approached the counter, scrolling through emails on his phone. "Welcome to McDonald's. May I take your order?" The voice was oddly familiar. Pichai looked up from his device, and his eyes widened in shock. Behind the register stood Dr. Ji-Woo Kim, the woman who had once led Google's most ambitious AI ethics project. 3 years ago, she had been presenting revolutionary research to a room full of executives. Now she was wearing a McDonald's uniform, with a name tag that simply read "Joy, Ji-Woo," he said, unable to hide his surprise. "Dr. Kim?" The color drained from her face as she recognized him. "Mr. Pichai, I wasn't expecting to see you here." The awkward silence that followed felt endless. A customer behind Pichai cleared his throat impatiently. "Just a coffee, please, Pichai," said quickly, fumbling with his wallet. Ji-Woo nodded, her movements mechanical as she entered his order. "That'll be $2.19. As she handed him his change, Pichai noticed her hands, the same hands that had once coded breakthrough algorithms now, slightly roughened from work. "Could we talk when you have a moment?" "I'm working," she replied flatly, already looking past him to the next customer. "After your shift, then?" he persisted. "Please, Ji-Woo." Something flickered in her eyes, pride, perhaps, or resolve. "I finish at 6. Pichai nodded and moved to a corner table where he could wait without drawing attention. The rain continued outside, creating a grey backdrop to his thoughts. As he sipped his coffee, memories flooded back. 3 years ago, Ji-Woo had been Google's rising star. Her project Athena had promised to revolutionize AI safety protocols. Unlike conventional systems, Ji-Woo's AI could recognize ethical dilemmas in real time and apply human-centered reasoning. It was like nothing they'd seen before, almost as if she'd discovered a hidden circuit in the machine mind that mimicked human conscience. The demonstration that day had been spectacular. Ji-Woo had connected her system to a simulation of an autonomous spacecraft rescue operation. As the scenario unfolded, the craft encountered an abandoned alien vessel with strange energy signatures. While other AI systems would have made decisions based purely on mission parameters, Ji-Woo's creation recognized the potential for unknown life forms and adjusted its approach accordingly, prioritizing both mission objectives and the preservation of possible sentient life. "It's thinking beyond binary choices," she had explained to the boardroom. "It's considering implications we haven't even programmed it to understand." The technology had seemed magical, almost alive. Then came the mysterious falling out. Rumors spread about disagreements over implementation, about Ji-Woo's insistence on ethical guardrails that some executives found too restrictive. One day she was there, the next she was gone. No announcements, no farewell emails, just empty office space and redacted project files. Pichai watched her now, efficiently handling the register, smiling at customers, wiping down counters between orders. There was a quiet dignity to her movements, but also a heaviness, the weight of someone carrying a story untold. At exactly 6 o'clock, Ji-Woo emerged from the back, her uniform replaced by jeans and a simple blue sweater. Her hair, once styled for corporate presentations, was now pulled back in a practical ponytail. She hesitated before approaching Pichai's table. "You didn't have to wait all afternoon," she said, not quite meeting his eyes. "I cleared my schedule," he replied. "The conference can wait." They moved to a coffee shop across the street, neutral territory. As they settled into a quiet corner, Pichai noticed something he hadn't seen at McDonald's, a small pin on Ji-Woo's bag shaped like a robot with a heart symbol on its chest. "You still believe in it?" he said, nodding toward the pin. "The Ethical AI Project." Ji-Woo's fingers touched the pin briefly. "Some ideas don't die just because a project gets cancelled." "What happened, Ji-Woo?" "One day you were leading our most promising team, and then I wasn't," she finished for him. "You know what happened. I know there was a disagreement with the board about implementation timelines. I know you wanted more testing before deployment." Ji-Woo laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Is that what they told you?" a disagreement about timelines. She pulled out an old tablet from her bag and powered it on. "Let me show you what really happened." The screen lit up with schematics Pichai had never seen, designs for robotic interfaces that could interact with humans in healthcare settings. After the spacecraft simulation success, I discovered something in the ethical framework. When the AI encountered those alien energy signatures, it didn't just follow protocols, it evolved them. It developed something like intuition. She swiped to another screen showing neural network patterns. The board didn't want caution. They wanted to weaponize it. Autonomous security robots with my ethical framework removed. They wanted to strip away the very thing that made the technology special. Outside, the rain had stopped, but thunder rumbled in the distance. Through the window, Pichai could see the McDonald's sign glowing in the early evening darkness. I refused to hand over the core algorithms without the safety measures. They said I was being difficult. Then came the threats, then the blacklisting. Her voice remained steady, but her hands gripped her cup tightly. 3 years of not being able to work in my field. 3 years of watching from the sidelines as AI development raced ahead without proper safeguards. But McDonald's? Pichai couldn't keep the question from escaping. Jiwoo's eyes met his directly for the first time. When you're labeled as difficult in tech, doors close. When your savings run out because your mother needs cancer treatment, you take what you can get. It's honest work. Pichai felt a pang of shame at his own assumption. In that moment, seeing the determination in Jiwoo's eyes, he realized she hadn't been defeated. She'd been planning. "You've been continuing the research," he said. It wasn't a question. She nodded slowly. "Every night after my shift, every weekend, I've refined the ethical framework. I've created something new, something that could change everything about how we approach artificial intelligence, robotics, even how we might someday communicate with actual alien life if we ever encounter it." Her eyes sparked with the same passion he remembered from her presentations years ago. "The universe is bigger than corporate profit margins, Mr. Pichai. Some discoveries belong to humanity, not shareholders." Pichai leaned forward, suddenly feeling like he was the one being interviewed. "Show me." "Let me start from the beginning," Jiwoo said, opening a worn notebook filled with scribbled code and diagrams. The coffee shop had emptied out as evening settled in, leaving them alone with their cooling cups and shared history. The day everything fell apart wasn't sudden. "Looking back, I should have seen it coming," she continued. "It was after the Artemis project demonstration, when we showed the board how our AI made ethical choices during simulated first contact scenarios." Pichai nodded, remembering the presentation that had stunned everyone. The simulation had placed an AI-controlled spacecraft in orbit around Europa, Jupiter's ice-covered moon. When the craft detected unusual heat signatures beneath the ice, suggesting possible life forms, the AI made the unprecedented decision to alter its drilling protocols to minimize disturbance instead of simply extracting samples as programmed. The board was impressed, Pichai recalled, but some directors were concerned about the AI making decisions beyond its programming. Jiwoo's eyes hardened. They weren't concerned. They were excited. Director Han pulled me aside afterward and asked if the system could be adjusted to prioritize resource acquisition over preservation of potential life forms. She pushed her coffee aside, leaning forward. That was just the beginning. Within weeks, military contractors were sitting in on my team meetings. They started asking about how to remove the ethical hesitation algorithms, the very core of what made our system special. "I never approved that," Pichai said quietly. "You were in Singapore that month. By the time you returned, Han had already rebranded my project as Adaptive Decision Systems and buried the ethics components in classified subfolders." Jiwoo's voice remained steady, but her fingers tapped nervously against her notebook. "When I objected, I was moved to a smaller office. When I brought documented concerns to the ethics board, my security clearance was downgraded. Outside, city lights flickered on as darkness fell. Through the window, they could see people hurrying home, unaware of the conversation that might one day affect their lives. The final straw came when I found test runs of my system being used to optimize autonomous weapons targeting." Jiwoo shuddered slightly. They had stripped away all the safeguards and were feeding it combat scenarios. My creation, meant to protect unknown life forms across the galaxy, was being taught to identify threat patterns. "Why didn't you come to me?" Pichai asked. "I tried." Jiwoo pulled out her phone and showed him an email chain, message after message requesting meetings, all answered by assistants with polite deferrals. After my fourth attempt, Director Han called me into his office and gave me a choice: sign the new classified contracts that would give up my rights to the core algorithms or leave. And you left. I couldn't stay. Not when something designed to recognize the spark of life in strange and wonderful forms was being rewired to extinguish it. Pichai leaned back, absorbing the weight of her words. "What happened after you left?" Jiwoo laughed bitterly. "Have you ever noticed how small the tech world really is? How quickly word travels?" She turned her notebook to a page filled with rejection emails. Suddenly, no one was hiring. Former colleagues stopped returning calls. Conference invitations disappeared. She swiped to another page on her tablet, showing a stock market crash graph with a date circled in red. Then the market collapsed 2 months after I left. My savings were mostly in tech stocks, gone in a week. My mother's cancer diagnosis came the following month. Pichai watched as Jiwoo's composed facade briefly cracked, revealing the weight she'd been carrying. But she quickly straightened her shoulders, continuing her story. "I tried starting my own company, Horizon Ethics. We were developing simple AI ethics review tools for smaller firms. 3 months in, our server was hacked, our code stolen. Insurance wouldn't cover it because they classified it as industrial espionage rather than ordinary theft." Jiwoo traced a finger along a diagram in her notebook, something that looked like a neural network, but with unusual branching patterns. "That's when I ended up at McDonald's. The manager, Jun-ho, hired me despite my overqualified resume. He needed someone reliable for morning shifts. And all this time you've been continuing your research." Pichai gestured to her notebook. Jiwoo's eyes lit up for the first time since they sat down. Not just continuing, evolving it. She pulled out a small device from her bag, a modified tablet connected to what looked like custom circuits. Without corporate constraints, I went back to first principles. She activated the device, and a holographic display flickered between them, showing what looked like a 3-dimensional decision tree, but with flowing organic patterns rather than rigid branches. This is HANA, Holistic Adaptive Neural Architecture. While Big Tech was busy making AIs that could write poems or draw pictures, I focused on something more fundamental: teaching AI to recognize value in unfamiliar forms. The display shifted to show a simulation of a robotic probe exploring a cave system. As the probe encountered strange crystal formations that pulsed within a light, it adjusted its movements, slowing down and maintaining distance. The probe recognizes that the crystals might be showing signs of organized energy exchange, possibly life, though nothing like Earth life. Instead of just collecting samples, it establishes a pattern of light signals attempting basic communication. Pichai watched, fascinated, as the crystal formations gradually changed their pulsing pattern to mirror the probe's signals. This isn't just programming, Sundar. It's a new paradigm for how intelligence, artificial or human, can approach the unknown. HANA doesn't just follow ethical rules, it develops ethical intuition based on recognizing patterns of complexity and autonomy. Jiwoo switched to another simulation, showing a spacecraft encountering what appeared to be floating gelatinous creatures in the atmosphere of a gas giant. These simulations are primitive compared to what we had at Google, but they demonstrate the concept. As they watched, the spacecraft detected that its scanning beams were causing the creatures discomfort and automatically adjusted to use passive sensing instead. The applications go beyond space exploration, Jiwoo continued, her voice growing passionate. Imagine medical AI that can recognize unusual patterns in patient data that don't fit known diseases. Security systems that can distinguish between genuine threats and unusual but harmless behavior. Conservation robots that can identify new species in remote environments. Pichai studied her face, the dark circles under her eyes testifying to Late nights spent coding after exhausting shifts, the calluses on her fingers from work, far different from the keyboard typing she was trained for. Yet her eyes burned with the same brilliance he remembered. "You've done all this while working." "Full-time at McDonald's?" Jiwoo nodded, shutting down the device. "Between shifts, on bus rides, in waiting rooms during my mother's treatments." She closed her notebook. "Some ideas are worth fighting for, even when the fight seems impossible." Outside, the first stars appeared in the night sky, distant worlds that might someday be explored with the very technology she was developing in secret. "The universe is vast, Sundar. We'll need more than just intelligence to navigate it wisely. We'll need wisdom. That's what I've been building, one late night at a time." The coffee shop was closing around them, the barista giving polite but pointed glances their way. Pichai checked his watch, nearly midnight. They had been talking for hours, with Jiwoo's demonstrations growing more impressive as she revealed layer after layer of her work. "Let's walk," Pichai suggested, leaving a generous tip as they gathered their things. Outside, the night air was cool and clear. Stars dotted the sky above the city lights as they strolled through a nearby park, their path illuminated by old-fashioned lampposts. "What you've built here, Jiwoo, it's extraordinary," Pichai said, breaking their contemplative silence. "Perhaps even more impressive than what you were developing at Google. There's something pure about it, unconstrained by commercial pressures." Jiwoo nodded, clutching her notebook close. "Freedom has its advantages. No committees to approve every decision, no quarterly goals to distract from the core vision. But also no resources," Pichai added gently. "No supercomputing clusters, no test environments, no team of engineers to help refine and scale your ideas." They stopped at a small playground, empty at this late hour. Jiwoo sat on a swing, rocking slightly as she considered his words. "What are you proposing exactly?" she asked, her voice cautious. Pichai leaned against the swing-set frame. "A special projects division, full autonomy, complete creative and ethical control. Resources that would make your current setup look like coding on a tablet after flipping burgers." The swing creaked as Jiwoo pushed back slightly. "Under Google's umbrella? With the same board members who wanted to weaponize my work?" "Not exactly," Pichai said, choosing his words carefully. "I'm thinking of something new, a separate research institute funded by Google but legally independent. You would retain all intellectual property rights. We provide the resources. You maintain control." Jiwoo stopped swinging, her expression skeptical. "That sounds too good to be true. What's the catch?" "First right of refusal on commercial applications, a seat on your board, and quarterly progress reviews with me personally, not to direct your work, but to ensure the funding is being used for actual research." The night sky above them seemed to expand as Jiwoo contemplated the offer, stars twinkling like distant possibilities. "I'd need guarantees," she said finally. "Ironclad legal protections that my work can't be repurposed for military applications or surveillance systems." "Of course. And I choose my team. No corporate assignments or political hires." Pichai nodded. "Anyone you want. And if I discover something truly revolutionary, something that could change how we understand intelligence or life itself, I need the freedom to publish openly, even if it doesn't benefit Google's bottom line." This gave Pichai pause, but only briefly. "Within reason, yes, though I'd hope we could find ways to both advance human knowledge and create sustainable business models." Jiwoo stood up from the swing, facing him directly. "One more condition. I need to continue my current research direction, focusing on recognition and respect for non-human intelligence forms, whether artificial or potentially alien. No pivoting to consumer applications or productivity tools." "That's actually why I'm interested," Pichai admitted. "Google's AI work has become too focused on incremental improvements to existing technologies. Your approach, teaching machines to recognize value in the unfamiliar, that's the kind of breakthrough thinking we need." As they resumed walking, Jiwoo's expression remained guarded. "I've heard beautiful promises before, Sundar. Words on paper didn't protect my work last time." "Then we'll put different words on different paper," he replied. "I'll have legal draft something unprecedented, a research charter with teeth." They had circled back toward the McDonald's, now dark except for security lights. As they approached, they noticed someone sitting on a bench nearby, a middle-aged man in a McDonald's manager uniform smoking a cigarette. "Jiwoo?" the man called out, standing as he recognized her. "Is everything okay? You've been gone for hours." "Taiho," Jiwoo said, surprised. "What are you still doing here?" "Closing shift ran late. Then I saw you two talking so intensely in the coffee shop." He crushed out his cigarette. "Sorry, I wasn't spying, just making sure you were all right." Pichai extended his hand. "Sundar Pichai. I'm an old colleague of Jiwoo's." Taeho Park's eyebrows rose slightly as he shook Pichai's hand. "The Google CEO? Interesting. Very interesting." He turned to Jiwoo. "Is he trying to steal my best employee?" Jiwoo smiled awkwardly. "Something like that. He's offering me a research position." "With full independence," Pichai added. Taeho studied them both for a moment. "Come inside. It's cold out here and I have the keys." They followed him into the darkened restaurant. Taeho flipped on a single set of lights over the dining area and gestured for them to sit. "Coffee? It won't be as fancy as that place across the street, but it's hot." When they were all settled with steaming cups, Taeho looked directly at Jiwoo. "So you're going back to the big leagues?" "I haven't decided," she replied. "It's complicated. She doesn't trust that the arrangement will protect her work," Pichai explained. Taeho nodded slowly. "Smart girl." He turned to Jiwoo. "Did I ever tell you what I did before McDonald's?" She shook her head. "Senior software engineer at Orbital Dynamics. We built navigation systems for the first commercial space stations." He rolled up his sleeve, revealing a tattoo of a space station. 15 years of my life, coding trajectories and docking procedures, until our company got acquired and the new owners decided that precision wasn't as important as cutting costs. Pichai leaned forward, intrigued. "What happened?" "I refused to sign off on the simplified protocols. They said the risk increase was minimal. So I said any increased risk in space was unacceptable." Taeho took a sip of his coffee. 3 months later, a supply craft using their new system had a near miss with a station module. No collision, but close enough to scare everyone. They quietly went back to the original protocols. My protocols, but I was already gone. "That's why you hired me," Jiwoo realized. "You recognized something in my resume. People who stand by their principles, even when it costs them everything, they're rare." Taeho turned to Pichai. "And corporate executives who respect those principles, even rarer." The McDonald's was eerily quiet without the usual bustle of customers and staff. Through the windows, they could see the first hint of dawn approaching. "Jiwoo showed me her work," Taeho continued. "Not the details, I'm old school, more hardware than neural networks, but enough to know it's important. Her HANA system could change how we approach everything, from space exploration to environmental monitoring." He turned to Jiwoo. "Remember that article I showed you about the probe they're sending to Enceladus next year? Imagine if it had your ethical recognition systems. It might be the difference between missing signs of primitive life and recognizing something miraculous." Jiwoo looked between the two men, her current boss and her former one. "You think I should take the offer?" "I think you built something remarkable while working cash registers and cleaning bathroom floors," Taeho said. "Imagine what you could create with proper resources." He paused. "But get everything in writing. Multiple copies, public records." Pichai pulled out his phone. "I can call my CLO right now. We can start drafting terms." "Not at 5 a.m., Jiwoo said with a small laugh. "And not before I've slept on it." Taeho stood, collecting their empty cups. "Take the week off, Jiwoo. Paid leave. Think it through." "I can't ask you to—" "You didn't ask. I offered." He looked at Pichai. "And you, if you're serious about this, prove it. Show her that this isn't just another corporate acquisition of a promising technology." The early morning light was growing stronger, painting the restaurant in soft golden hues. Pichai nodded, understanding the challenge. "What if we set up the institute here?" he suggested suddenly. "Not in Silicon Valley or some gleaming research park, right here in this community. Renovate one of those empty warehouses down the street. Create jobs. Build something authentic." Jiwoo looked at him with surprise. "You'd do that?" Innovation doesn't only happen in tech hubs, Pichai said. Sometimes it happens in a McDonald's after hours when someone who believes in something refuses to give up. As they stepped outside, into the new day, Jiwoo looked back at the restaurant that had been her workplace and, strangely, her laboratory for the past years. "Give me 3 days," she said finally. "I'll have my terms ready by then." The old warehouse had transformed beyond recognition. Where rust and dust had reigned 6 months earlier, gleaming workstations and holographic displays now filled the space. Sunlight streamed through newly installed skylights, illuminating the Phoenix Institute's logo on the far wall. A stylized bird rising from circuit patterns. Jiwoo stood in the center of the main lab, watching her team of 12 researchers working, with focused intensity. The atmosphere crackled with purpose as keyboards clicked and holographic models spun in the air. If anyone had told her a year ago that she would be leading a cutting-edge AI ethics lab instead of flipping burgers, she would have laughed in disbelief. "The neural binding is still unstable in Simulation 7, called Do-Yun Lee from his workstation. The former quantum computing pioneer had been working as a night security guard when Jiwoo found him. His brilliance had been eclipsed by his outspoken concerns about quantum encryption vulnerabilities, concerns that had made him unwelcome in corporate research. "Try recalibrating the empathy parameters," suggested Minji Kang, looking up from her own screen. Once the rising star of robotics at a major tech firm, she had been pushed out after refusing to compromise safety standards for faster production. Before Jiwoo recruited her, Minji had been teaching basic coding to elementary school students, her talents wasted on lessons she could teach in her sleep. Jiwoo moved between workstations, checking progress and offering suggestions. Their project, HANA 2.0, was nearing completion after months of intensive development. Unlike conventional AI systems that treated ethics as external constraints, their creation wove ethical reasoning into the very fabric of its decision-making. "Architecture. How's the alien contact simulation running?" Jiwoo asked, stopping beside Young-ho, their youngest team member, who had dropped out of his PhD program after conflicts with his advisor over AI ethics. "See for yourself," Young-ho said proudly, expanding his display for everyone to view. The simulation showed a spacecraft landing on a distant moon. As the craft's exploration robot emerged onto the icy surface, it detected unusual heat signatures beneath the frozen crust. Previous AI systems would have followed standard extraction protocols, drilling for samples regardless of potential disruption. But HANA 2.0 approached differently. It deployed gentle scanning tools first, detecting subtle electromagnetic pulses. That suggested organized activity. The team watched as the AI established a non-invasive observation post and began attempts at basic communication through light patterns. When the ice beneath the robot suddenly thinned, threatening to plunge it into the subsurface ocean, where it might contaminate the environment, the AI made a remarkable decision. It deliberately disabled its sampling tools and reconfigured itself as a passive monitoring station, rather than risk harm to the potential life forms. "That's it," Jiwoo whispered. "That's exactly the kind of adaptive ethical reasoning we've been working toward." Their moment of triumph was interrupted by a news alert flashing across all their screens. Jiwoo's stomach tightened as she read the headline, "Nexus Corp announces unlimited AI, no ethical constraints, maximum efficiency." The team gathered around the main display as the news report played. The CEO of Nexus Corp, wearing a sleek, black suit that matched his company's aesthetic, spoke confidently to the press. "Artificial intelligence has been held back by unnecessary limitations," he declared. "Our new system, launching next week, removes these constraints. It will optimize solutions without the hesitation or inefficiency caused by so-called ethical frameworks." The report cut to footage of their system directing automated mining operations on an asteroid, extracting resources with brutal efficiency that ignored delicate crystal formations that might have contained scientific value. "This is exactly what we've been fighting against," Minji said, her voice tight with anger. "They're promoting it as a feature, not a bug, that their AI doesn't consider long-term consequences or preservation values." Do-Hyun checked his watch. "Their press conference is in 2 days. We were planning to unveil HANA 2.0 next month. We need to move faster," Jiwoo decided. "If Nexus sets the standard with their approach, it could set AI ethics back by decades." The team exchanged determined looks. Without needing to be asked, they began reorganizing their schedules and priorities. Within minutes, a new plan was forming. "We can accelerate the final integration," Young-ho suggested. "If we work through the night," "Through several nights," Minji corrected. "We'll need a more compelling demonstration than just simulations," Do-hyun added. "Something tangible that shows real-world implications." Ji-woo paced the lab, thinking rapidly. What about the lunar rover prototype? Could we integrate HANA as its guidance system? The prototype sat in the corner of the lab, a collaboration with a space agency that had been scheduled for testing later in the year. If they could show HANA making ethical exploration decisions in actual hardware, not just simulations, "It's possible," Do-hyun said slowly. "Challenging, but possible." "Then that's our goal," Ji-woo declared. "In 48 hours, we demonstrate that ethical AI isn't just theoretically superior, it's practically essential." The next 36 hours blurred into a marathon of coding, testing, and refinement. Team members caught naps on couches when they could, but mostly sustained themselves on determination and the conviction that their work mattered. As dawn broke, on the second day they were making progress, but fatigue was taking its toll. "We need food. Real food, not just energy bars," Ji-woo announced, seeing the exhaustion in her team's faces. "And a change of scenery. Meet me at McDonald's in 30 minutes." The puzzled team followed her instructions, arriving at the familiar fast food restaurant where Ji-woo's journey had begun. To their surprise, she was behind the counter, wearing her old uniform. "Tae-ho let me borrow the place for a few hours," she explained, flipping burgers with practiced ease. "Sometimes changing your environment helps reset your brain." Tae-ho emerged from the back, carrying trays of fries. "The Phoenix crew. I've been following your progress through Ji-woo's updates." As the team devoured their unexpected feast, something magical happened. Away from their screens and immersed in the normalcy of the restaurant, new ideas began to flow. Minji sketched algorithms on napkins. Do-hyun solved the neural binding problem while sipping a milkshake. Young-ho had a breakthrough on the communication protocols while arranging ketchup packets into patterns. "It's working," Ji-woo observed, watching creativity spark across tired faces now animated with renewed purpose. "Of course it is," Tae-ho said quietly. "You've reminded them why they're doing this, not for fame or funding, but because it matters." As they prepared to return to the lab for the final push, Ji-woo paused to look around the restaurant. From cash, register to world-changing research, her unlikely journey had come full circle. "One more thing before we go," she said, gathering her team. "Whatever happens tomorrow, remember this. Technology should serve humanity's highest aspirations, not just its immediate desires." That's what HANA represents. With renewed determination, they returned to the lab, ready for the final sprint toward a demonstration that could change the course of artificial intelligence forever. Camera flashes popped like stars as Ji-woo Kim took the stage at the Global Technology Summit. The massive conference hall fell silent as she approached the podium, her simple blue dress a stark contrast to the flashy techwear many attendees sported. Behind her, a large screen displayed the Phoenix Institute logo alongside images of their lunar rover prototype. 3 days ago, she began, her voice steady despite her racing heart, 2 different visions of our technological future were presented to the world. The screen split to show 2 videos side by side. On the left, Nexus Corp's AI directed mining robots tearing through a simulated asteroid field, stripping resources with machine precision. On the right, the Phoenix Institute's rover carefully navigated a lunar landscape, pausing to document unusual crystal formations before proceeding. "Nexus promised efficiency without constraints," Ji-woo continued. "We promised something different, intelligence with wisdom." She tapped her tablet, and the demonstration began. The lunar rover, equipped with HANA 2.0, encountered what appeared to be simple rock formations, but instead of bypassing them, it paused, adjusting its sensors. The audience watched in fascination as the rover detected subtle temperature variations and electrical patterns within the structures. "What you're seeing is not programmed behavior," Ji-woo explained. "HANA detected organization patterns suggesting these formations might be silicon-based life analogs, something between crystal growth and living organisms. The rover deployed a small drone that hovered near the formations, projecting light patterns. After several attempts, the formations began responding with their own pulses of light. "First contact," Jiwoo said softly. "Not with advanced aliens, but with a life form so different from our understanding that conventional AI would have classified it as mineral deposits to be harvested." The audience erupted in applause. Science reporters in the front row were already frantically typing on their devices. Jiwoo raised her hand for silence. "But Hana's applications extend beyond space exploration," she continued. "We've integrated our ethical framework into everyday systems." The screen shifted to show a medical diagnostic AI that flagged unusual symptom patterns a conventional system had missed, a traffic management system that prioritized emergency vehicles without creating dangerous conditions for other drivers, and a resource allocation program that balanced efficiency with sustainability. In every case, the key difference is this: our AI doesn't just follow rules, it understands the values behind them. In the front row, Sundar Pichai nodded with quiet pride. Beside him sat Taiho Park, looking somewhat uncomfortable in his new suit but beaming with undisguised admiration. "Today, I'm pleased to announce that Google will be implementing the HANA framework across all its AI systems," Jiwoo revealed. "Not as a replacement for existing technologies, but as an ethical foundation, upon which all other functions will operate." The announcement sent ripples through the audience. Tech journalists rushed to update their feeds. Competitors whispered urgently to their colleagues. Nexus Corp's CEO, seated in the back row, quietly closed his presentation folder and slipped out of the hall. "But we're not stopping there," Jiwoo continued. "The Phoenix Institute is establishing a global talent initiative we're calling the Hidden Genius Program." The screen displayed images of people in service uniforms: restaurant workers, janitors, delivery drivers, retail clerks. Brilliant. Minds exist everywhere, often hidden by circumstance or overlooked by traditional talent pipelines. Our program will identify and support these individuals, providing education, resources, and opportunities regardless of their background or current occupation. Taeho stood and was recognized with a round of applause when Jiwoo revealed he would be heading the program's first training center, located in the renovated space next to his McDonald's restaurant. As the presentation concluded, Jiwoo's team joined her on stage for a demonstration that left the audience speechless. A fully interactive holographic model of a theoretical alien ecosystem based on Hana's predictive understanding of how life might evolve under different conditions. Floating above the stage were translucent creatures that combined characteristics of Earth's fish, insects, and plants in entirely new ways, all interacting in a complex environmental dance. "This is more than just a creative exercise," Jiwoo explained as glowing organisms drifted overhead. "By understanding how life might develop in environments radically different from Earth, we can develop exploration protocols that respect and protect whatever we might discover out there." One particularly beautiful creature, something like a jellyfish composed of light, floated down near a young girl in the audience. Instead of passing through her as a normal hologram would, it reacted to her presence, changing colors and patterns. As she reached toward it, "It sees you," Jiwoo said, smiling at the child's wonder. "That's what makes Hana different. It recognizes the uniqueness in what it encounters." 6 months later, Jiwoo stood at the podium of the World Economic Forum, addressing global leaders about the ethical challenges of advanced technology. The HANA framework had been adopted by 17 major tech companies and was being integrated into the next generation of space exploration vehicles. "My journey from a McDonald's cash register to this stage wasn't just about personal perseverance," she told the assembled dignitaries. "It was about recognizing that innovation can come from anywhere when given the chance to flourish." In the year since the Phoenix Institute's launch, their scholarship program had discovered 37 remarkable individuals working in service jobs, including a delivery driver who had developed a novel approach to quantum computing algorithms in notebooks kept in his truck, and a hotel housekeeper who had created an elegant solution to a long-standing problem in climate modeling. Back in the neighborhood where it all began, The McDonald's restaurant had become something of a pilgrimage site for tech enthusiasts. Taeho had installed a small museum chronicling Jiwoo's journey in what had once been the play area. More importantly, the restaurant's back room had been converted into a community tech center where Taeho taught coding classes after hours. On a crisp autumn evening, Jiwoo returned to visit. She found Taeho guiding a group of teenagers through a programming exercise using modified versions of the same algorithms that powered Hana. "Look who's here," Taeho announced as she entered, prompting the students to turn with wide eyes. "Don't. Stop because of me," Jiwoo insisted, taking a seat at the back of the room. "I'm just visiting home." As she watched the next generation of potential innovators working intently at their stations, Jiwoo thought about the twisting path that had brought her here. From corporate star to outcast to fast food worker to revolutionary, each step had shaped not just her career, but her understanding of what technology should strive to be. Outside the window, stars began appearing in the evening sky. Among them was a bright point of light, the International Space Station, now carrying a HANA-powered research module designed specifically to search for unusual signs of life on distant worlds. The universe was vast and filled with wonders yet to be discovered. Thanks to a chance encounter in a fast food restaurant, humanity would approach those wonders not just with curiosity, but with wisdom and respect. Then Duans,